Hello everybody and welcome to CTT, Chasing the Truth with Chase Steffes. Now last video I did based off of how baseball is in general and how it's going to be in the season and how I didn't think that we would have a season. Well, they just voted on it and looks like we're going to have a season after all. I'll get to that in a different video. Now, as for football, I have been doing videos based off of the NFL quarterbacks and where their rankings are, and also the division standings for the AFC. I've got two more divisions. I'm doing one today, and then I'll do the AFC North for my last one, and then I'll get to the NFC later on. Now, today I'm doing the AFC East, and I would have to say that this is the hardest decision I've had to make in terms of where the team stacks up and where the teams rank, because this division is getting better each year. The Dolphins are in a rebuild. They got a lot of draft picks this year and a lot of free agent players, and I think that they are going to be way better than what they were last year and take a massive step forward in the rebuilding process. And the New England Patriots lost like a couple guys, but the massive one is Tom Brady, and the Jets are back and forth in this division each year. They could be good, they could be lousy, we don't know. Now, the Buffalo Bills are the most complete team in this division so far. But the way that I'm going to do this is I'm going to start off by going to the with the bottom team, and I don't put them at the bottom or put these teams at the bottom or like where I put them because I hate them or because of how I did research on this, and this took me a while on why and where I put these guys just because of like how they are and like how the team's built. But I did my research on the teams that are in this division and where they should stack up, and it was tough. But starting off at 4, I'm gonna have the New England Patriots in this division, and I know that everybody out there is gonna sit there and say that I'm stupid and that this is a dumb decision, but I'm picking the Patriots to finally come in 4th place in their division for the first time in years. And the reason why is because they don't have Gronkowski, they don't have Brady on that team. Now, I would say that I would put them in 2nd if Brian Hoyer was the starting quarterback, but it's Jared Stidham is what the reports are coming out that he's going to be the starter. We don't know what Stidham's got up his sleeve, and we don't know what he's capable of. We saw him a little bit in preseason, and we saw that he's good here and there, but ultimately, when it comes down to it, you can't really decide on how he is without seeing him play. And I know that everybody's like, oh, well, Belichick can do good without him. He did good without Brady in that 08 season. Well, in the 08 season, he also had Randy Moss, he had Chad Johnson, he had Ben Watson on the offensive side of the ball. And frankly, Matt Castle or anybody could work well with that roster. And he did. And if you don't believe me, go look it up. He had Randy Moss for that year. But I think without Brady, that team takes a massive step down. And yeah, Belichick is a good coach, but I don't think he's good enough to coach that team to victory. To a division title again. Now, the Patriots won their way to a division title last year because they had one of the easiest schedules for the first 9 games of the season. They played teams that were just garbage or awful for the first 4 or 5 games. And then it didn't start getting competitive until the midway through. But the first 9 games of the season, they almost went undefeated for the first 9 games because it was lousy teams. And if that defense had a challenge, then who knows if they would have been the first-ranked defense in the NFL. But on the offensive side of the ball, he had nothing to work with. His receiving options were limited to Mohamed Sanu and Julian Edelman, because N'Keal Harry was injured, and you didn't really have much going for the running backs, and they didn't really do much either. And the offensive line started failing on him towards the end of the season. So it is going to be a big surprise to see what they can do. I will not be shocked if they finish in 2nd place. I don't see them winning the division this year just because it's that much stronger. But I do have them at 4th for right now, and I'm going to get a lot of hate for that, but I don't care. Chasing the truth, I'm telling the truth and what other people would be scared to say, and people would be scared to say that. Moving on to number 3, I battled back and forth with this for a little while for the 3 spot and the 2 spot, but I ultimately think that the Miami Dolphins will probably finish in third. Now, I will not be shocked if they finish second, but with looking up everything and looking at all the research that I did, they spent a lot of time with their draft picks and like who they got and like what they did in free agency. I know they got Austin Jackson out of USC. They got Robert Hunt, a guard, Raekwon Davis, a defensive tackle out of Alabama. And on the defensive side of the ball, they picked up a lot of free agencies. They got Kyle Van Noy. They still got the linebacker from the Patriots. They still got Raekwon McMillan. They got Xavier Howard. They picked up Byron Jones. Now, in the back half at the safety position, they really don't have much to work with there. On the defensive line, they got Emmanuel Ogbah. They got Shaq Lawson. They got Christian Wilkins. They've got Curtis Weaver, who was a good defensive end coming out of Boise State. Now, the reason why I don't think that they probably wouldn't finish in second is because their roster is still lackluster when it comes to offense. Because as far as the offensive side of the ball goes, they really don't have much to work with. I mean, their two best receivers are Devontae Parker and Preston Williams, and they got Albert Wilson. They did draft a guy out of Army. Not exactly sure who he was. It was Malcolm Perry. They drafted him out of Navy, not Army. They drafted him out of Navy, and frankly, he could play running back or receiver. I don't see him playing running back because they got Jordan Howard, and they also got Matt Breida from the Niners. So I think those two are going to do a combo there, being running back by committee and sharing the reps. Now, I do think they also picked up no, that was the Jets. Yeah. So I think they're going to do running back by committee. I was expecting them to pick a top receiver or expecting them to pick up J.K. Dobbins, but they really didn't pick up J.K. So, yeah, I think the reason why they wouldn't finish in second is because of the offensive side of the ball. But they could shock a lot of people. And I don't think Tua is going to start this season playing starting quarterback. I think it's still going to be Fitzmagic, and he is going to take over being the starter, and Tua's going to learn. And I think that they are going to sit him out the entire season, and it's not going to be one of those half seasons and then in thing, because they want to give him time to develop, want to give him time to learn, and learn the playbook and the offensive scheme on how things are going to be. And then they'll play him next year when they could also build the team up even more with more draft picks that they got. So they still need receivers. They still need a little bit on the defensive side of the ball. I'd say more safeties. They definitely need another linebacker. But as far as the defensive line and the corners go, they are all set in that mindset. But I do see them possibly coming in second, depending on how that offensive scheme is. Now, moving on to number 2, I have the Jets finishing in second place in this division. And this was hard I know everybody's going to be like, oh, the Jets, over the Patriots, what are you talking about? No. Looking back at it, the reason why the Patriots had so much success without Brady there, Matt Castle had a Hall of Fame wide receiver to work with. He had a good tight end in Ben Watson at that time. And he also had Chad Johnson, who was still, pretty good when he was playing. And then you also were like, oh, well, he did good with Jimmy G. Well, Jimmy G also was a good quarterback, and he also had a good team. He still had Edelman. He had Gronkowski. He had, a lot. I think Welker at that time, Amendola at that time, and those guys stepped up and played well for them. So he still had a good team when they took over. But the team is not set up to where it was at that time. And as far as the receiving options go, they didn't pick up anybody in free agency. They didn't really draft anybody. They drafted 2 tight ends, but it's yet to be seen what they can do. Now, the Jets, I have them in second place, just looking at their roster and everything. And Sam Darnold did get mono to start the season. He was out for 5, maybe 6 games. And when he came back, they ended up finishing the season 7-9 with the roster that they have. And going in free agency on who they got, the Jets picked up a lot of guys during free agency. I know that they ended up getting Connor McGovern, who is an offensive lineman that they picked up. They actually just bolstered their offensive line. They picked up George Fant from the Seahawks, who was a tackle. And they also picked up Alex Lewis, who is a guard. And then they drafted Mekhi Becton, the 365-pound lineman out of Louisville. So picking up those guys really helped beef up that offensive line. And then you go back to the draft picks that they picked. They got Mekhi Becton. They got Denzel Mims out of Baylor, the wide receiver. And losing Robbie Anderson is going to hurt them because I feel like having Denzel and Robbie would have clicked well together and would have helped Adam Gase in his offensive scheme. But they did pick up Rashad Perriman. They re-signed Quincy Enunwa. And as far as their tight ends go, they really don't have very many good ones. But they still have Le'Veon Bell. They signed Frank Gore as well. They got Joe Flacco as a backup. And I think that this team offensively could put up some numbers and could produce, depending on what that defensive side of the ball has in store. Because I know that they still got Quentin Williams that they got from Alabama last year, who was their first round pick. And then they picked up C.J. Mosley in the offseason. Now, as far as we know with the trade talks that are going around for Jamal Adams, it is yet to be seen and heard on what's going on there. We don't really know exactly what's going on. Now, if they get rid of him, that's going to be a big blow to the defensive side of the ball. I think it's going to hurt them. But they also have Ashton Davis that they picked up out of California for a safety position, but he's more of the free safety while Jamal is more of the strong safety. And it would click with those two in there. So looking at the roster that they got, having Perriman in there, that's a speedster guy, and he really revamped himself when he was with Baker and the Browns, like Baker's rookie year, and then he went to the Buccaneers. He still played all right, and now he signed with the Jets. So I think that this Jets team could be in a perfect line to win some games and win a lot in the division, but it is yet to be seen, and we don't know how things are going to go. We don't know how Adam Gase is going to be. We don't know how Sam Darnold is going to be, but the offensive line is a lot better for him. He did get a good receiving option out of Baylor, but ultimately it comes down to how they're going to play during the season. Now, coming up to number 1 in this division, I have the Buffalo Bills winning this division outright. And frankly, you can't blame them because with the team that they had last year, they did pretty good with who they had. And I know a lot of people say that defense carried that team, which it really did. But on the offensive side of the ball, Josh had nothing to work with. His offensive line was meh. His receivers were meh. He had Cole Beasley. He had John Brown. He had a couple others. But ultimately, he did not have that standout guy like a lot of teams do, like a Julian Edelman or a N'Keal Harry or like a Robbie Anderson or a Devontae Parker type. The Bills really didn't have that guy. John Brown had 1,100 yards receiving, and the Bills still produced offensively. Now, they picked up Zach Moss out of Utah. They picked up Isaiah Hodges. They picked up A.J. Epinesa for the defensive side of the ball, being a defensive end. They lost Shaq Lawson, but they gained Epinesa. I think he was one of the best defensive guys. They still have Tremaine Edmonds. They also picked up Stephon Diggs in free agency. Well, not free agency. Sorry, via trade from the Vikings. They got Stephon Diggs, so that's really going to help Josh Allen in the offensive side of the ball. And they also got Josh Norman. Now, I know a lot of people say Josh Norman's washed up. He's not really that good. But I think that having a change of scenery and changing the team is going to be good for him. So they still also have Tre'Davious White, and picking him up is or I mean, not picking him up, picking up Norman is going to be huge for Tre'Davious White, and having those two on the opposite side of each other. They also still got Ed Oliver on the defensive line, and they also picked up Quentin Jefferson. So that defensive line is still poised to make an impact in this division. And as far as the running backs go, having Zach Moss and Devin Singletary, like the 1-2 combo there, it's going to be huge for them. Now, as far as things go, I think that the Bills are poised to make an offensive breakout this year. And Cole Beasley's going to be the third guy. He's going to be a slot guy. Having John Brown being the opposite of Stephon Diggs, and then having Diggs be the number one guy. This offense is going to put up numbers this year and produce in that division. I picked the Bills to go 11-5, maybe 12-4. I picked the Jets to go 8-8, maybe 9-7, bottom half 7-9. I picked the Dolphins to go up, step up, and either go 6-10 or 7-9, maybe 8-8 at the ceiling. And then the Patriots, I still think that they will do good, but I could see them doing 5-11, 6-10, or maybe even 8-8, going 500. I don't see them falling below 5 wins. I don't see them falling below 4 or 3. They are just good with the coaching, but ultimately it's going to go the Bills, the Jets, the Dolphins, and the Patriots. Barring who starts for the Patriots, if it's Hoyer, I'll put them with the Jets and flip-flop them, putting them in second place. I still think the Bills will win. And then I would put the Dolphins at third still. Now, I don't think Tua is going to start, and I think that this division is probably one of the toughest in the AFC in terms of trying to figure out who's going to be where at the end of the season. But that is how I have the division set up. Thank you all so much for watching this video. Make sure you like and subscribe, and comment if you have any issues or in terms of anything that you want to say. Tune in next time for the next video. Thank you all. God bless.